Today we're going to go over some information resources for social policy research specifically. My name is Gail Betts. I'm the librarian for the School of Social Work. My email is gbetz, B-E-T-Z, @hshsl.umaryland.edu. So some things we're going to cover in this lecture. Creating effective search strategies is going to carry throughout. We're going to look at some policy databases from the library, identify sources outside of the library specifically for policy research, and understand how to evaluate website sources for bias to the best of your ability. So starting with searching. As an example, in 2022, the Baltimore City Department of Transportation put out some data around the city's compliance with ADA, or the Americans with Disabilities Act, in neighborhood infrastructure, specifically around things like curb cuts and sidewalks. They determined that compliance with ADA for curb cuts was at 1.3%. So my question is, how does accessibility impact older adults' ability to age in our neighborhoods? And if you'd like more information or the complete assessment from this evaluation, the website below will take you directly to that whole PDF. So again, my research question is, how does accessibility impact older adults' ability to age in our neighborhoods? And I've underlined some of the key phrases in this research question. So the search terms that I would pull out are things like ADA, or the Americans with Disabilities Act, neighborhood infrastructure, curb cuts and sidewalks, accessibility, and older adults. So how I would combine those terms to create an actual search strategy that works in a library database are things like neighborhoods or aging in place, and older adults or elder or senior. And in this particular scenario, I put an asterisk at the end of elder and senior because that will give me different endings to those root words. So elder or elders or elderly, senior or seniors. The asterisk gives you those different endings to the original root word. And then we've got lastly, and ADA or Americans with Disabilities Act or accessibility or accessible or curb cuts. You could throw in or sidewalks there also. I'm using or to tell the database that I'm considering those words specifically to be synonyms. So I'm looking for articles that have any of those keywords in them. I don't care which it is, I'm good with any of them. In contrast, and is combining the different concepts. So I want articles that have all three, neighborhood and older adults and ADA, for example. Social policy research library databases. So these are not specifically only about social policy, but they have more social policy literature in them than some of the other databases that we subscribe to in the library. So SocIndex, PsycInfo, and Abstracts in Social Gerontology are all EBSCOhost databases. So if you've used OneSearch on the library's homepage, that is also a database we get from EBSCOhost, which just means that the interface that you're using is the same in all of those. So they all look the same on the front end. It's the back end that's different. So the journals that each of these databases contain is a little bit different, which means you're going to get different articles. SocIndex, for example, has sociology and social work journals as well as some social policy. PsycInfo is a little bit more specific to psychology and psychiatry as well as social work. And then Abstracts in Social Gerontology obviously has a lot of gerontology journals. CQ Researcher is different in that it's not strictly peer-reviewed literature or peer-reviewed journal articles in the way that you would find in, say, SocIndex. They are more like in-depth policy articles. So CQ Researcher is a great place to find background information or sort of like a current update on what's going on in healthcare policy or criminal justice or education, that kind of thing. There's not an article for every topic in CQ Researcher, but for articles that are relevant to your interests, it's a really great resource to look at the history of a policy topic. Lastly, Legislative Insight is specifically useful for bills and laws. It has a lot of federal laws, specifically, not so much state, just federal. But it does a really good job of outlining the history of a bill or law and how it got to where it currently stands. So we're going to go to the library's website. All right, so I'm going to start in Sociindex and we're going to do a search for the research question that I just read about accessibility and older adults aging in place. Okay, so we'll do older adult or elder or senior and neighborhood or aging in place and ADA or Americans with Disabilities Act or accessibility or accessible or curb cuts. All right. So I'm then going to limit to peer reviewed. That dropped us down by only 5 articles. You could continue to further limit. Actually, let's do geography, and I'm going to say United States. You can see there were some other state-specific ones in there. So Michigan was listed. So geography is not always exactly how you expect it to be. United States obviously should include Michigan, but the way that the database is sort of listing things is a little bit overly specific sometimes. But let's see. Let's say I want to look at this one. So if I wanted to pull the full text on this, I could click PDF full text, or I could click the yellow Find It button, read full text at. If this does not appear here, you'll get an hyperlink below that says order a copy of this article. That takes you to our interlibrary loan page, which I highly recommend you use. It is absolutely free and usually takes a day or two to get the PDF that you're interested in. I often get things the same day. So definitely, if this is something that you would like to read and we don't have it online, absolutely use interlibrary loan. Here are some subject terms. So this is a good place to see if you've got an exhaustive list or if there's some other keyword that you're missing that would be helpful. I didn't include the word policy in our search. I could do that. For example, accessible design is a little bit more specific than what I put in. And then Down here, you've got, this one is just a brief abstract, but this will give you more information on how to determine if this article is relevant to what you're actually looking for. And this one, for example, is a little less neighborhood and a little bit more specific to homes. So it's probably not exactly the type of thing that I'm looking for. All right, and I'm going to go back to the library's website, look at CQ Researcher. So under databases, you'll see that there's a table here of 9 databases. These are just our most popular databases. So I'm going to click on View All, and then go to C, CQ Researcher. All right, so at the top here, I'm going to type in Americans with Disabilities Act. All right, so this is pulling up any articles that they have that have any of essentially these words in them. So we've got disabilities, it's mapping to disabled. It is pulling essentially any of those words. So I'm going to go back up and we're going to try Americans with Disabilities with quotation marks and see what happens, what the difference is. All right. Perfect. Implementing the Disabilities Act, so 1996 is a little bit older than I would prefer. The Disabilities Act, 1991, so this was published immediately after the ADA was passed in 1990. And it's possible that that is going to be our best fit, which is not quite what I'm hoping for, but this at least is a few years past then. So just to give you a sense of the type of information you can get from CQ Researcher, and you can save it as a PDF. You can cite it. So if you want to know how to get an APA citation for this, you can click here. But this is every different part or section of the article for CQ Researcher. So this is really typical. Current situation, so this is not current because it's from 1996, but current to the date that it was published, as well as the background can be helpful. Chronology can be really helpful. So this gives you a detailed timeline of how a policy came to be, essentially. So if you're looking for background information on what's going on with your social problem and the policy that you're looking at, if something's in CQ Researcher about it, this is going to be a great place to get that sort of history. They also do footnotes. So if you're somebody who really likes to use the footnotes from Wikipedia, CQ Researcher is very similar in that sort of regard, but they're all vetted by the professionals that write these in-depth articles. So I highly recommend looking at the footnotes. They can be really, really helpful. All right. With that, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint here. Some other sources for policy information. So library databases can be great, but they're not always the most current, as we just saw. So sometimes going to websites, things like think tanks or research institutes like Brookings, for example, nonprofits like the Kaiser Family Foundation can have more up-to-date data and information on a particular social policy. And government websites are also always a good place to get the specific language for a bill or law, or if you're looking for case law in particular. So Maryland.gov and Congress.gov are two really great, freely available websites where you can get the specific bill or law. Legislative Insight and Congress.gov are very similar in the information that they both have. Legislative Insight we pay for in the library. And the main difference with Legislative Insight is that it is a lot more visually appealing than Congress.gov, but the information is pretty much the same. So let's look at Maryland.gov. All right. So if you wanted to find legislative information on Maryland.gov, you can type it into the search bar, of course, and look for it. You can also go to Government on the right-hand side. And you get these different sections here. So I'm going to click on Legislative Branch. You can then search for specific laws. You can look at the committees. So if you're looking for, what's going on in the House, for example, if you want to find out like what's going on with public transportation, you can look at the committees and see what's happening. You can also, if you know what your law is that you're already looking for, you can look it up here. If you want to see how budget is impacting what's being done, the Maryland General Assembly does a really great job of publishing information about the budget. So if you wanted to see, how public transportation is being funded in Baltimore City versus the rest of the state, or, in different counties, et cetera, you can look at the budget here and get more detailed information. Lastly, for example, think tanks or other nonprofits. So there are a lot of sort of research entities out that publish really recent data, or they're doing, investigative work, or they're trying to influence policy being done at either a state or a federal level. And think tanks have different specific missions. So they are trying to research something for a particular purpose. And while a lot of the data that they pull or that they combine or synthesize can be really helpful, you need to know what the mission is behind the think tank in order to use that information in the way that it is intended. So, for example, I'm going to use Brookings as an example here. So if I wanted to find out more, I'm going to go to About Us. Every website that you look at, specifically or absolutely things like think tanks and research institutes, should have some sort of About Us page. You should be able to find things like who we are, so who works here, what are they doing, our leadership, who's on the board, who's running the institute, board of trustees, what we do. So specifically, annual reports are great, but mission and vision. So why was this organization created? What are they intending to accomplish? What we stand for, research independence and integrity, policies, that kind of thing can be really helpful. It is not specifically that you are looking for a organization that is flawless, they don't exist. What you need to figure out is what they're doing and why. So that way you can take into account what might they be covering, what might they not be covering. Is there anything that is a glaring hole in what they're reporting? That kind of thing. Just trying to figure out, to the best of your ability with the information that you can find on the internet, why somebody is publishing what they're publishing. If you can't find information like this on their website, that is also informative. Are they trying to hide something? What are they doing sort of behind that, those sorts of closed doors situations, so that you can piece together what is going on. The other part here that's helpful, and this is specific to the layout of Brookings Institute's website, you've got the different areas of research that they are particularly invested in. So climate, artificial intelligence, cities and regions, global development, international affairs, U.S. economy, that kind of thing, gives you a sense of what they are spending their time and resources on. If you cannot find information about them sort of at that top level there, oftentimes you will be able to find a sitemap at the bottom of the page. This is for website accessibility primarily, but oftentimes you'll find about us, contact, careers can be helpful as a way to see what's open. So this is another place to look at the bottom of the website to see if they have a clear sitemap there to give you more information if you don't see an About Us at the top. 3 bars like this is also a good place to look. You can get a sense of their website layout that way too, see if there's an About Us. Lastly, this is a sort of library jargon acronym for evaluating websites. It's called the CRAP test. So currency, how recent is the information? Relevancy, how related to your research question is the information? Authorship, who wrote it, and can you find any information about their background? This does not specifically mean, are they an expert in a traditional higher education, do they have degrees kind of sense. Authorship and expertise can be relative. So, if it's somebody in Baltimore City who's an older adult who's writing about their neighborhood in a neighborhood newsletter that's published online, and they're writing about the lack of curb cuts in their neighborhood, and they're publishing that online, that isn't the kind of authority that we typically think of for, higher education purposes as being an expert opinion. However, they're the people who are living it. And so if that is the kind of author that you're finding, you just want to know who they are and what their sort of relationship to the information is. Are they a degreed academic expert, or are they sort of, a citizen who has experience? Or are they both? Accuracy is the second A here. So can you confirm that the information is correct through other sources? This can be like, a breaking news story that's only published in one news outlet thus far. You're going to want to wait until you see the same information in a couple of different places before you can confirm, yes, this is breaking news, it's happened. And lastly, what we were just talking about with the About Us and the mission and vision is the purpose. So why is the information out there in that format? Generally, what is the goal of publishing that information? And if you would like to send me an email about social policy research questions, or sort of just anything in general, again, my email is gbetz, gbetz at hshsl.umaryland.edu. You can also set up an appointment online. You can email me to set up an appointment, or you can go to the calendar on the library's website, find me and set up an appointment, or if you would like to set up an appointment with another librarian, all of us are listed on this same page with our availability. So please feel free to contact me at any time, and I look forward to hearing from you.